Alright, let's take a look here. 35 degrees. It is freaking cold. And I'm riding like an idiot. So, please forgive me. Ooh. Alright, so riding in the cold. There's a lot of downsides to riding in the cold. Not many upsides. So one of the downsides, one of the things is that it's really distracting. You know, when your toes are cold and your fingers are cold and your face is cold, when everything's cold, it's very distracting. It's hard to pay attention to what's going on around, and when you ride a motorcycle, you need to pay attention. You gotta watch for traffic, you gotta watch for road hazards, you gotta watch for wildlife, and the more distracted you are, the more that draws away your attention from seeing the gravel or the sand or the grass or the leaves in the road, or seeing that car, you know, being able to predict that car pulling out, you know, being able to brake early enough to stop before, you know, an accident, or being able to swerve. You know, when you're distracted by the cold, all that stuff is a lot more hard. It's a lot more difficult. And even talking, I'm so distracted. I'm distracted enough by the cold that even picking the right words is sometimes difficult. That's one bad thing about riding in the cold, is it's very distracting. Another bad thing is that it's fatiguing. When your body's cold, you tense up, you kind of hunch up around your shoulders, your muscles tense, you know, sometimes you shiver. That tenseness, that attempt that your body is making to stay warm and produce heat, it takes energy. And so you're fatigued. And of course, just like being distracted, being fatigued, it kind of has the same effect. You know, your reaction time is slower, you might not notice as much, might not be as alert or as vigilant to the hazards around you. Ugh. I can't get my thing up. That's what, that sounded bad. I can't get my visor up with these big fat gloves. So yeah, it's distracting, it's fatiguing. What else? There's not as much traction. You know, your tires need to come up to a certain temperature for optimal traction, but there's this thing called thermodynamics, where things with high energy tend to move towards high energy areas, move towards low energy areas. And so let's say you do get some flex in your tires and you do get them warmed up, well, all that warm energy is getting sucked out by the atmosphere in the cold road. You make contact with the cold road. Basically, any warmth you get into your tires is drawn out by, it's kind of sucked out of the tire by the surrounding environment. If everything around the warm tire is colder, then you lose heat. And when you lose heat, you lose traction. So yeah, traction's worse in the cold. You know, not to mention that there might be, like, you know, a little bit of, you know, when you get into the shade, into a shady part of the road, there might be a little bit of frost or ice if it's really cold. And there's definitely not much traction there. What else? You know, I was saying earlier that my gloves make it difficult to control the throttle and the brake and all that stuff, so there's another negative thing. It's like kind of your gear, the gear you use just to stay warm, oftentimes you have less mobility. So you're kind of like, your hands are kind of stiffer, your arms are, you know, you're just less mobile. And you gotta gear up for the cold. That kind of sucks. And then, you know, if you ride out somewhere to, oops, forgot to shift, too distracted. You know, if you ride out to, you know, to a little diner or something, you walk in the diner, it's all warm, and you're in your whole bunch of gear. You know, you gotta take it all off, otherwise you're gonna be sweating balls inside the diner, and then you gotta put it all back on, go back out in the cold. So, like, you know, I'm a proponent of wearing protective gear. I think it's important to wear, you know, things to protect your hands and your head, your body, the rest of your body. But you know, when it's cold, you not only have like stuff to protect you from the asphalt, hard objects that you might run into, but also from the weather. That's just kind of a pain in the butt. What about positive things, though? What are some good things about riding in the cold? You know, it feels good to conquer the elements, to beat the elements, you know? And, you know, I'm not the gatekeeper for, you know, who's a real rider and who's just a poser rider, but, you know, if you're the type of person that likes riding so much that you go out in that sub 50, sub 40 degree Fahrenheit weather to go out and ride, well, you know, you're at least one step closer to being, you know, you've earned my respect as a rider, you know. And it's not like I'm a snob. Like, if you just ride, if you're a fair weather rider, I don't care. That's fine. It's totally understandable. That's for sure. I wouldn't blame anybody for being a fair weather rider. Conquering the elements feels good. Another good thing about riding in the cold, it sure does help you appreciate the warm days. The more you ride around in the sucky weather, the more you appreciate the warm weather. So yeah, that's another good thing about riding in the cold. I just thought of another bad thing about riding in the cold. If you wear a full face helmet, your doggone visor always fogs up whenever you slow down. Like, I have mine cracked just a tiny bit so that it doesn't fog up when I'm riding. But as soon as I come to a stop and I start breathing, it gets all fogged up and I can't really see much. Oh God, what's some other good things about riding in the cold? It's really hard to think of something that's good about riding in the cold. I guess depending on where you ride, like me, I like to ride on these back roads out in, you know, out of town. I suppose these roads are probably a little less busy during the cold season, because a lot of people will take these roads to go do outdoor activities, like, you know, go mountain biking or hiking or walking their dogs out the trail, go out into the state parks or whatever. In the wintertime, there's not much outdoor activity you can do, so, well, there's a little less traffic, I suppose. There's less wildlife, I think. You know, I don't know about deer. I think there's definitely a season for when deer come out. Probably in the spring and in the fall. I don't know. But in the wintertime, probably less likely to run into a deer or a raccoon or a possum or, you know, whatever. Another good thing about riding in the cold is when you see another rider, you get really excited. You know, in the summertime, when you go out onto the roads where motorcycle traffic is heavy, you know, you go out into the popular roads where everyone rides, and you're just like constantly waving, like, wave, 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 wave. Yeah, I like waving at other riders, don't get me wrong, but, like, I like riding more than I like waving. But in the cold, you come across another rider, you're like, whoa, hey, what's up, dude? Oh God, what else? hard to think of stuff just off the top of my head. I didn't really prepare anything. I just decided to go ride. Since it's so freaking cold out, it was just kind of a natural thing to think about and talk about. Bad things, it's distracting, it's fatiguing, your visor fogs up, you gotta wear a bunch of gear, like a whole bunch of gear that makes it harder to control the motorcycle, gives you less mobility. It's a big pain in the ass if you stop at like a diner or a coffee shop or something to take a break. You gotta peel off like all these layers, settle down, and then after you pay the check, you gotta put everything back on. Big pain in the butt, but it feels good to conquer the elements, to beat the elements, to beat nature, to take the worst that nature has to offer and say, you know what, F you, I win. Feels good. Makes you appreciate the warm days. You know, if you ride all winter, when spring comes around, spring and summer, you're like, hell yeah! I don't gotta put on my freaking fat gloves. I can wear my nice little fingerless gloves, or, you know, whatever gloves you wear. You know, if you don't wear gloves, you can be excited about not wearing gloves. You know, that's not me, but you know, to each their own. Turkey. You get some new scenery, less wildlife as I just pass a turkey. Maybe less traffic, depending on where you ride, perhaps. Yeah, I don't know. Oh, you know what's nice about riding in the cold? Is I'm stuck behind this slow-moving vehicle, and it doesn't really bother me, because riding at like a spirited pace or an enthusiastic pace, depending on, you know, how you want to say it, it's a little bit more difficult to do in the cold because of all the negative things about it, because of the distraction, because of the fatigue, because of the traction, and so going slow behind this vehicle it's not really bothering me as much as it would if it was a nice warm 75-degree day. You'd be like, get out of the way. I want to ride with spirit, not illegal, mind you. I don't want to ride at a speed that's against the law. That would just be totally uncalled for. But what I don't want to do is slow down for the corners as much as I normally, or as much as a car does. I want to carry a little bit of momentum through the corner on a warm day. But in these cold days, hey, you know, let's take this corner nice and slow. Just like pick a line and try to hold it. Oh, there's a little bit of sand there. I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna pull over here, take some photos of my bike, post them to Instagram. Oh, whoa. All right. Bye-bye.